Welcome to our spring 2016 Walt Whitman Writer Series. I'm Theo Ganji. I'm a professor here of English and director of the writing program. I just want to thank a few people before we get started. Ian Maloney, my colleague in setting up all the Whitman series. Of course, the Provost's office. Tim Houlihan for excuse me, for sponsoring our literary events, and I'd like to thank, of course, Marlon James for coming out, and Isaac Fitzgerald for what will be a super exciting event. For those of you who don't know BuzzFeed Books, Isaac Fitzgerald is the editor and puts together a really energetic, and it just makes you want to read and read and read. It's like, it actually is upsetting because you can't possibly read all the stuff you want to read when you're on there. And tonight we welcome the esteemed author Marlon James. Marlon James was born in Kingston, Jamaica, 1970. His second novel, The Book of the Night Women, won the 2010 Dayton Literary Prize, the Minnesota Book Award, and was a finalist for the 2010 National Book Critics Circle Award in Fiction. His first novel, John Crow's Devil, in 2005, was a finalist for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize and the Commonwealth Writers Prize, and was a New York Times Editor's Choice. His short fiction has appeared in Esquire, Kensington Noir, and Silent Voices, and his nonfiction has appeared in Granta Publishers Weekly and the Caribbean Review of Books. His third novel, A Brief History of Seven Killings, won the 2015 Man Booker Prize. It's a big deal. James is exploring multiple genres, the political thriller, the oral biography, and the classic whodunit, to confront the untold history of Jamaica in the 1970s, and the assassination attempt on Bob Marley, and the country's own clandestine battles of the Cold War. And strangely enough, I randomly ran into Mr. James in the street yesterday. He's in New York for 3 days. I've been emailing him for months, and it's Spring Street. I don't know. It's weird. It's like a nexus of things. But we're really glad to have him here. So please give a big round of applause for Marlon James.
Thanks, Theo. Thanks for having me, and thanks for coming out. So I'm going to read a brief section from A Brief History of Seven Killings. That's a joke, laugh. I'm going to read two really short sections, actually. So I'm going to read and it's a very short episode of Americans in Jamaica, and a very short one of Jamaicans in America. So this character's name is Josie Wales, and Josie Wales is on the way to becoming the Don of downtown Kingston, but he's at this point so important that everybody needs to meet him, including the new head of the new CIA attaché. That's just how important he is. So this is a meeting between him and the new CIA head. It's 1979, and they're at Morgan's Harbor in Port Royal. When the old American leave for Argentina in January, a new one come and take the spot. New American song, same old lyrics. He called himself Mr. Clark. Just that, Mr. Clark, just ditch the E. He think it was so funny, so he said every time we meet up, Mr. Clark, just ditch the E. Now, April 1978, and we're at Morgan's Harbor, the hotel for white people over in Port Royal. We're looking over at Kingston from an almost empty restaurant. Well, they were looking. I was watching. Me with two foreigners who are already feeling the pirate spirit take over them. Did Blackbeard ever pillage and plunder these parts, matey? Me only know about Henry Morgan, sir. Also in Jamaica, matey's a woman that a man keep that is not him wife. Oh, whoops. It was a long time since I chat bad on purpose, so much so that Dr. Love had to translate 2 times. At least this one wasn't like Louis Johnson, holding that memo upside down and pretending to show white people that nigger can't read. Something I still remember. But then he said, "You poor precious people, don't even know you're on the very verge of anarchy." What me not understand, if we're precious, how we must be poor? Diamond precious. But that's what you are, my boy, a diamond in the rough. So rough this island, so roughly cut and beautiful. And so precarious. By precarious, I mean that you're teetering on the edge. By that I mean precarious. Yes, exactamente. Isn't that right, Louis? Louis and I go back a ways, too far back it seems. Oh, so you are part of that Bay of Pigs flop show too? What? No, that was before my time, way before my time. Well, maybe one day you'll find a poison that really works on Castro. You're a perceptive one. Cunning even, eh? Has Louis been feeding you the news? No, the news has been feeding me the news. Hold on now, Josie Wales. Nothing threw these Americans off more than when they realized that they were wrong about you. Remember to say at least one "no problem, man," and vibrate it like this: "No problem, man," before you drive away, just so he think you have the right man. I almost forget that for most of the time he was trying to tell me that Jamaica is at war. A bigger war than 1976, the Cold War, he say. Do you know what we mean by the Cold War? But war don't have no temperature. What? No, son. Cold War is a term, it's a figure, it's just a name for what's happening here. You know what? I got something right here. Here, look at this. The white man take out a coloring book. When you keep playing fools with Americans, you learn to expect anything, but this one throw even me off. Oh, what is? I had it upside down, so I knew exactly what he was thinking. It's a breakdown, that's what... Louis, does he know what a breakdown... I mean, may I look at it for a second? Thanks. Let's see. Ah, pages 6 and 7. See on page 6? This is the world in a democracy. See? People in the park. Children running around, running down the ice cream truck. Maybe somebody over there is grabbing a Twinkie. Look, see that guy reading a newspaper? And watch that chick. Hot, right? Wearing that mini skirt. Who knows what these kids are learning, but they go to school. And every adult in this speak, they can vote. Oh yeah, look at the tall buildings. That's because of progress, markets, freedom. That's the free market, son. And if anybody in this picture don't like what's going on, they can say so. You want me to color the picture, boss? What? No. I tell you what. I'll give you a couple dozen of that school you've got. We've got to get the word out to the young before these fucking pinko commies recruit them. Fucking freaks, these commies. You know why so many of them are faggots? Because normal people like me and you, we reproduce. Commies, they're like homos. They recruit. Or like any American church that come here, I think but don't say. Instead I say, true thing that boss, true thing. All right, so I'm gonna jump to a Jamaican in America. All right, here we go. No, that's too far back. So, this character name is Dorcas Palmer, and she's a caregiver in New York. She's just reporting to a new job for the Coulters, and they're on Fifth Avenue. Dorcas, like a lot of women from the Caribbean in the 80s, is an undocumented immigrant. She basically does the work, they don't ask questions. And this is her with her new boss. The other thing you should know is that Dorcas Palmer is not her real name. So this is her sitting down with the new guy, Mr. Coulters. So I've been sitting down and watching this man sitting down and watching me for an hour now. I know I'm waiting on instructions from the missus or the Ms. or whatever this Coulters woman chooses to call herself, but he's just sitting like he's waiting on instructions. Back firm, hand in his lap, head straight ahead like C-3PO. I like to say that makes him look like the pet dog, when that would make me the pet bitch. It must be a whole new thing, a whole new level of license to know you can keep people waiting for as long as you like. I always wonder if this was some power tactic bullshit, something to let people know their place. I am paying the check, so kiss my ass. If she wants to pay for nothing, I get paid by the hour, and it's her tab. But honestly, this man really looks like Lyle Waggoner. Google him. And I watch Carol Burnett reruns every week. Tall, black hair, white at the temples, and a chin straight out of a cartoon of a handsome man's chin. Every other minute, he looks over at me, but turns quick when he sees my eyes waiting on him. Maybe I should just say I need to piss so I can get out of the room. Or rather, I need to pee. Lord Jesus, I can't stand that word pee. No male over 10 should use that word. Every time I hear a man use it, all I can think is only small cocks pee. He looks at me sudden, probably because I chuckled. God, I hope I didn't say that out loud. Nothing left to do now but pretend it was a cough all along. The Ms. just raised her voice from the office, probably with her husband or whatever. Lyle Wagner looks at her door and laughs, nodding the whole time. What kind of man wears pink pants? Brave? Homo? Well, if you were homo, I guess there'd be no granddaughters. White polo shirt with his chest and biceps stretching in a nice way. Honestly, Lyle Wagner wouldn't get kicked out of the free love orgy if he showed up. I bet my next pay that he wears briefs and bikini to the pool. You could even say that he was a hot silver fox, as American girls call men they have no business fucking. I wish the missus would just finish up her rascal call, or sooner or later I'm going to start thinking out loud, and I don't care what anybody thinks. Might as well check out the house. I would get up, but something tell me he would just say, don't touch that. This just looks like the kind of house where you know no penny or lost button is in that empty vase on the table. Glass, of course, but not a dining table. 2 more chairs on the right and left of the room, just like the one we're sitting on. Coffee table with Town and Country magazine all over it. One of the living rooms you always see in the ads of New York Times magazine. On the left wall, the painting's just gone mad. The one in the middle is a Pollock, he says to me. Actually, it's a de Kooning, I say. He glares at me and nods. Well, I don't know what the hell my family buys, although that one's been up here for a while. Looks like some kid ate his Crayolas and vomited up the whole thing, if you ask me. Okay. You don't agree? I don't really care what other people think about art, sir. Either you get it or you don't. And it seems pretty stupid waiting on people to get it when you could just as easily enjoy having more museum space to yourself thanks to one less idiot telling you how his 4-year-old daughter could do it. Where did they find you, sir? Ken. Mr. Ken. No, just... Never mind. You think Miss Busy Bee there will ever remember to respect people's time and get the fuck off the phone? I don't think she heard you, sir. I told you my name is... Whatever. You probably have no way of knowing this, but do you know if my daughter specifically asked for a black maid? I'm not privy to that kind of information, sir. Ken, Mr. Ken. I'm just wondering, since Consuela, at least I think her name was Consuela, damn near stole everything she could carry out of the house. Okay. I'm pretty sure there is no Jamaican named Consuela. I thought she was ingenious. Everything she stole, she put underneath the furniture, right? So today she'll steal bed linen. She stashes it under the bed. The next day, it may be soap under the chair near the bedroom door. The next thing by the table outside. Then the armchair in the living room. Then the next armchair. And on she goes until by just moving each thing over by one space, she always has something right at the door to take home. I said to her, that wetback built a fucking underground railroad right in our home. You know what she says? That kind of talk is unacceptable in the North, Papa. Like I wasn't born in fucking Connecticut. So I figured she'd had her full of Puerto Ricans. Jamaican. You don't say. I've been to Jamaica. All I could think of is, oh Lord, here it comes. Another white man about to tell me how he enjoyed Ocho Rios, but would have enjoyed it so much more if it wasn't for all the poverty. And the country is so beautiful, and the people are so friendly. And even in all this tragedy, everybody still manages a smile, especially the bumble-rascal children. Yeah, Treasure Beach. What? Excuse me? I'm sorry, Treasure Beach. You know it? Of course. The truth is, I didn't know it. I barely even heard of it. So unspoiled. Granted, that's what everyone says about the place they're busy spoiling. The Ms. finally come out, clutching her bag and touching her hair. Papa, be a dear and show Miss Palmer around, will you? Just don't overexert yourself this time. I'm sorry, Miss Palmer, but is there a fucking kid behind you? Papa. Because I have no idea who she's talking to. Oh, for heaven's sake, Papa. Anyway, your son is going absolutely bonkers over the new apartment, so I have to skedaddle. Do show her where the kitchen is. Miss Palmer, do you mind me calling you Dorcas? No, ma'am. Peachy. Cleaning supplies are under the sink. Be careful with that ammonia. What am I forgetting? I don't know. Toodles. Bye. She closes the door, leaving me and the father in the house. Should I tell him that I'm not a maid and I don't come from a maid agency? I think there is some mistake. You're telling me. But my son married her anyway, so that's that. Thank you.
So I thought we could start with talking about my trip to Jamaica. No, joking.
Really?
Yes.
You weren't like a Peace Corps person, go there to find yourself?
Never been.
Yeah?
Yeah, only time I've been transported there is in your book, sir. Yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah. But I do want to start with especially that first section that you were reading from. And for those of you that have read the book, you know this. Just from the get-go, you were assaulted with so many different characters and so many voices in this book.
Yep.
And I was wondering if you would talk a little bit, even there, as you were reading that section,
Yeah.
second section as well, you would change your voice so quickly. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about your writing style and how you started to pick that up.
Well, this one, I mean, the thing about this book is that I really tried to write a short novel. I really was,
Whoops.
I know. I was like, oopsies. It's, because the first page that I wrote is now on page 458 of the book. It was not supposed to be in Jamaica. It was set in 1985. It was a Chicago hitman who just don't understand New York, who is here to kill a Jamaican drug lord, but he's going through boyfriend trouble. Because that happens, he's deep in love, the boyfriend is deep in like.
That's tough. That's a tough place.
Oh, my God,
yeah.
isn't that bad?
Yeah, it's a bad place to be.
God, it is. Anyway, so that was the novel. That was it. I was going to get in, whip it out in like 180 pages, and leave. And I couldn't finish it. And
Yeah, and your book before was like 200, or was it the first?
the book before was around 430 pages.
Okay, so your first book was like,
My first book was pretty short.
yeah.
But the thing about that book, the book before, was that it was one voice telling the story. And because I was I don't think I was still in the mode of that book, but that's the way I wrote the last one. So I just assumed, okay, let's just find this magic voice that's going to tell me a big story. And all these voices that I kept coming up with, Bam Bam, the Jamaican kid, was the second one. I kept running into dead ends with all of them. And I just didn't know what to do with the books, because I thought it was a whole series of novellas. And my friend Rachel, she was the first one to say, why do you think? I said, I don't know whose story it is. I don't know whose story to write. And she said, why do you think it's one person's story? Go back and read As I Lay Dying, which I did, and it blew my mind again. And I got, oh right, it can't be one person's story. And that's the thing about Jamaica. Jamaica is not much bigger than Rhode Island, but you can't have one person tell a Jamaican story. When I remember the first time one of my best friends, Steve, went to downtown Kingston. I'm like, you are 24 years old and this is your first trip to downtown Kingston. This is like, what, a 7-minute drive?
Wow.
It was the first time. And I realized there are a lot of Jamaicans in Uptown who have never seen downtown Kingston. There are lots of Jamaicans in downtown Kingston who have never seen Norbrook. They don't think they have a reason to go. In Jamaica, there are dozens of Jamaicas. So it just couldn't be one voice. And that's why it started to turn into this sort of multi-person thing. And one of the ways that I ended up doing that is each day I'd only spend on one character.
Okay.
And I would be the only person I write for that whole day. Which I think is why it just turned into this, it kept becoming this bigger and bigger and bigger thing. I mean, the assassination attempt was barely 5 minutes.
Wait, so would you change characters? Like every day you'd be like, this is a Josie day, this is...
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't think in any section did I write. Actually, that's not true. Only for like the third section, when it becomes these long stream of consciousness parts, would I spend more than a day on a character. But for every section but the third, it was, if it's Josie Day, it's Josie Day. I just didn't write anybody else. Yeah.
Would you jump around, or would you at least...
I jumped around for a while. I think by the time I got to the third part, I knew where the novel was going. and I still didn't know where it was going to end. But by the time I got to like part 4, I think I figured out where it was going. I mean, by the fourth draft, not the fourth draft, by getting to part 4 and part 5, I mean, I was pretty much just writing and just. I don't think I redrafted the last third of that novel.
Just moving it.
I just kind of moved with it, but I kind of didn't tell anybody that because I know if I said that when the book came out, the rushed novel, you know what critics are.
It's so raw.
The rushed novel would have benefited from further drafting.
More cuts. Let me ask a little bit. You talked about uptown and downtown, and you've spoken about this publicly, but just like kind of what it is.
Are these mics? Could we even do that?
Yeah, we do.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right.
Deal.
We need it to record.
But it's not. I don't think they're working though.
Okay.
Oh, you lowered them. Oh, okay.
Just because my voice was far too.
You're basso profundo.
Yeah. But so the idea, sorry, apologies about that. The idea of being uptown, downtown, living in these different worlds. But also, when you come to the United States, basically everybody reactions being, oh, you're from Jamaica, that's poverty, that's violence. Can you talk a little bit about what it meant for you to represent different parts of this country that a lot of people have just one view on?
I mean, the book in a lot of ways was a response to that. That wasn't the main reason I wrote it, but it became something that was very important to me. That people see the different Jamaicas, the different accents, because Jamaican patois is not just one accent. I don't understand people in St. Elizabeth. They'll start talking, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking. And if you go to the Germans in Jamaica, they're like, that's even worse. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking.
The size of Rhode Island, but as many different...
Yeah. Because I think people, when they even know about Jamaica, have either, they have one narrative or two, and these are the people who claim to know anything. Funny enough, the scholars can be just as bad, because then, or the journalists, it would be, all they know is plantation and ghetto. It's like, we can have a pretty stable middle class going on for nearly over half a century. And I wanted that in there. But also, a character like Nina Burgess is very much like me, where I'm sort of educated and shift between these classes, but I don't belong to them. I went to the same school that the rich kids go to, but I didn't live in rich neighborhoods. And I think I even sometimes picked up her kind of bitterness. I'm like, why do I know all of this stuff and I can't move anywhere with it? Which again is also a lot of the reasons why a lot of Jamaicans end up here. It's again better opportunities. I remember.
Like Nina, Nina.
Yeah.
Although she's.
Well, Nina is on the run because people are to kill her.
Yeah.
But the slight thing about being hunted. But other than that, it's land of opportunity. That's why she's here. Yeah.
When did you come to the United States yourself?
I mean, I came here in 2007. I mean, I've been going sort of back and forth. I used to be sort of living, and I put living in quotes, on and off in New York from between 1999 and maybe 2005. Because of that day, I found out that if you live here 6 months, you're here legally. But if you're here 5 months and 29 days, you're cool. But that was not advice. Do not follow that, anybody. I used to go. I mean, back and forth. I used to stay. A friend had a pale, stupid rent up in Washington Heights and so on. But here as a permanent citizen, 2007. And I moved to Minneapolis.
Yeah. So you weren't here because if I'm remembering the years correctly in the sections, it's 85 and 91.
No, I wasn't here.
So you weren't here. Did you do some research into trying to figure out what the culture was like in the city at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time researching. I mean, the novel that I'm trying to write now, I just spent a year and a half researching it, and I'm not done researching it. Even with this novel, there's enough I will write so I can start writing with some sort of confidence. And that one was hard. I wasn't here in the 80s, and I wasn't, so figuring out 80s New York if I wasn't here, that was a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of TV. I actually built a 70s slang dictionary and an 80s slang dictionary.
Like your own Word document?
Yeah, my own Word document. Because if you're in the 1970s, nobody says sup. or stuff like that. Really understanding the crack epidemic and what was behind it, really understanding the politics behind it, because I'm talking, most of the characters in my book are pretty close to politics, and I didn't want to outright say it, but notice these are the same people who are in the politically heavy part, the first part of the book, are the same people playing in the drug heavy part in the book. It's the same cast, and I just left that there. Yeah. But I study everything. I want to know if Americans had two-ply toilet paper. You might need to know that. Because I think, for me, I have to know enough that characters can just sort of inhabit the space of a book. And it's not just, it's not just what do your characters want, but what do they want right now? Research, and research can also change the course of a book or add stuff to it. Like the scenes that I just read, the Democracies for Us coloring book actually did exist.
No kidding.
Because I got that coloring book.
Wait, do you still have a copy?
It was the weirdest thing. No, I think my mom she saves everything. My mother, they save everything, so my mom probably have it. But I remember the Democracies for Us coloring book, and it was on the left side. It was the world. It was the world in a totalitarian dictatorship, and you basically color those in the grays and blacks and so on. And the other side was the world in a democracy, and it was all of these pages. And I'm like, yeah, they start us young. Yeah. So, and
it's all colorful, it's all green, it's all vibrant.
Well, you get to color, so they tell you what to color it.
Very democratic.
Yeah, so again, research and research also jogs memory and yeah, because a lot of the crazier stuff in this book are the really true stuff that did happen.
Talking about real versus fiction, you are playing with a lot of historical characters here, and you're trying to get at these larger truths. Also, sometimes having to fill in the gaps where there isn't room for research. Can you talk a little bit about what it meant to you when you could say, "Oh, I could take this person out of reality and make them work for me," or I have to create a brand new character?
Well, I mean, the whole novel was because I had to create characters. If I didn't have to create characters, I probably would have written nonfiction. Right. Then I would be shot. But it's
interviewer doesn't know whether to laugh.
It's I think one of the things that draw me, I think, as a writer is I run into these mysteries that I want to solve, and detective and real detective work is not going to find it because the trailer is going to go cold, and that was what always attracted me to these 7 men. They're actually 8. But Brief History of 8 Killings is not sexy. Come on.
Technically, there's like way more than 7 killings.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But Brief History of 100 Killings would sound like I'm imitating Marquez. So. No, but what was I going to say? I've got totally distracted from my own point now.
Sorry. Fiction, reality.
Yeah. I remember reading Timothy White. I didn't read Catch a Fire first. I read his addendum to it, which came in this issue of Spin, which I remember because Jane's Addiction was on the cover, and it was the first Lollapalooza. This is how I remember everything. And
by which Lollapalooza?
By which Lollapalooza? So it would have been the Jane's Addiction. Don't start in on that. But he updated his book. The book I hadn't read yet. But in this sort of addendum, this appendix, he finally talks about the men who tried to kill Marley. And 2 of them he named, but the rest, nobody really knew who they were. 1 or 2, they may know of a name. And I am really attracted to people who vanish from view. If I'm looking at a picture, the first thing I look at in the crowd is who's walking away. And what's their story, and that's what drew me to writing this novel. The parts where I think fiction can work in imagining and bringing humanity, if not bringing humanity to lives that just vanish from view, that slip out of the frame of the photo, or people don't know about, or don't talk about, or people try very hard to forget. And that's where the invention, that's one place where the invention came about, because I'm filling in blanks. But also, one of the things I get from nonfiction is composite characters. One, because I just didn't want to be the lazy sort of this person is that person, this person is that person. I also don't want nobody to kill me. But because somebody already asked, so we noticed your Peter Nasser is Eddie Seaga. I'm like, but Eddie Seaga appears in the book, so it can't be him. So, and then they give me this really long stare, and I'm like, okay, how many people has that guy killed? Oh, I leave next week. Good. So
Like, I want to be very clear.
Yeah.
Two different.
yeah. So part of it is sort of, and also I think, and that there are times in that novel where I reclaim a novelist's right to invent. You know, I'm not telling nonfiction ultimately, and the truths I want to get at are not from facts. So yeah, I still sort of reserve that right to invent and create. So the as I say, a lot of the crazier stuff in there is the stuff that really happened. Like the coloring book and some of the stuff. The more ridiculous things is what happened. I mean, it's like what Marquez said about the Caribbean. You know, it's that's why he writes. It has to be magical or realistic because that's the Caribbean.
It is. It's magical. Yeah, magical realism. Talk to a little bit. I don't like to get too much into like the personal life of authors and the interviews, but you did write a stunning piece in the Times, and you talked about what it means to be an out author, and especially given that we've already had a couple, and then the author got murdered jokes up here today. I was wondering if you could watch the audience. All right, good.
You know what?
Well, I was just wondering what you could talk about. What
I
it
think
meant to make that step, because it was bold and it was in the Times.
Yeah, but I think, you know, and I'm not saying this glibly, I really think through things. Because this is how it happened. New York Times just gave me a prompt. I didn't even come up with the idea. They gave me a prompt.
What was the
prompt? The prompt was Voyage of the Will. And all I could think of was 3 trips. You know, I could think of me real desperately wanting to leave Jamaica. I could think of me code switching in New York, like literally code switching, and me coming to a sort of acceptance by moving into a place where it's winter for nearly half of the year. And it sort of came, it came that way, and then Marlon James comes out. The funniest thing is my friend Maxine was like, oh dear, he came out, when was he in? It's, you know, and I mean, I've been back to Jamaica since then. I've been there twice this year, and I'm going there for a 3rd time in a few weeks. I've been there 3 times. And has there been, you know, homophobic stuff? Of course, there was actually an anti-Marlon James Facebook page. I think somebody did something to it. I don't know what they did to it. But it was just a, you know, when I was doing the Bob Marley lecture, and of course Bob Marley is a legendary ladies man, and somebody had up this Facebook page called Should a Homosexual Give the Bob Marley Lecture? And then she distanced herself. I say she because I know exactly who did it. I won't be naming names. Yeah, well, no. But, you know, and then they did the whole, as for me, I admired the book tremendously, but, you know, I'm going to distance myself from the bigotry I'm inciting. And but for the most part, people were just really excited. They read a book that for a lot of Jamaicans, they think it's just a book whose time has come, meaning that it's time we start talking about stuff like that. Because everybody in Jamaica, there are no surprises in this book for any Jamaicans. We talk about it on our kitchen, in our verandas and in our bedrooms and so on all the time. We just never talk about it out in the open. And I think there was actually a kind of relief at that. I think there a lot of people were happy just that I won the Booker Prize. Then they went and Googled Booker Prize, and oh, it's a big deal. Yeah, we're happy. I am so done with that. I'm like, I don't care. You don't have to read the book. Just buy it. But it remains complicated. You know, one of the best evenings I had the second time I was in Jamaica is that I actually met this it was a gay students union.
And this is after the book came.
Yeah, it was a gay students union in Jamaica at University of the West Indies. And I thought I'd have to give some pep talk about, you know, you must find your internal strength and such and such. They're not having that crap. They want to talk about formation. And I was like, all right, let's talk Beyonce. Because I'd much rather talk about Beyonce. I'd rather talk about Beyonce today.
Funny you should say that. Because before I kick it out to the audience, the one last thing I did want to touch on is how music is so. I mean, your sections of your books are named after songs. Bob Marley is referred to as the singer. And like it's so clear that music has just affected your life in all these different ways. And then you've also just spent 4 years in Minnesota.
9 years.
I apologize. 9 years. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about your relationship to Prince and his music.
Yeah.
And then also maybe a little bit about Beyonce. And I want to be very clear. I am as ignorant about Prince, and I'm sorry to say this, but I'm as ignorant about Prince as I am about Jamaica. So I apologize.
I am definitely not ignorant about Prince.
No, I can tell.
It's in my high school yearbook. It actually says in the most likely to. It actually says most likely to work for Prince.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it says ambition to work for Prince. You can get it on Facebook.
You got close, man.
I know.
Same city.
It's so, and I'll call people who haven't seen me since high school. Like, guess where I am living? And I go, no. Like, yeah. They're like, are you working for Prince? Like, no, I'm not working for Prince. I'm a teacher, you idiot. So, but yeah, and I never met him. But Prince, I mean, I bought Purple Rain. I bought Purple Rain when I was 14 years old. It was the first record I ever bought. And I remember even back then, people was like, yeah, but he has that song, Darling Nikki, and it's really, really, it's nasty. So I'm like, am I going to be allowed to buy this record? And I'm buying it, and I'm like, hoping nobody sees me buy this nasty record. And to carry it home, and there's only one record player in the living room, and my parents are everywhere. I'm like, they won't understand American accents. And playing it, and Darling Nikki comes on, and I'm turning it down when he says masturbating, and then turn it back up, and it was just the most electrifying thing to have ever happened in my life at that time. And the second time anything like that happened to me was when I read Sula at Toni Morrison, where without looking for it at all, as a piece of art that is not trying to validate anybody's life but the artist, end up validating mine. And I remember being so sort of liberated and electrified by Purple Rain and by Dirty Mind and Sign of the Times and Love Sexy, which I still think is the definitive way somebody should grow up on record. And so not as Prince become a sort of a major sort of cultural and personal, emotional figure in my life. A lot of people sort of define me by that. So when Thursday, when Prince died, and I pretty much spent the whole day bawling. And the funny, it was funny and it was weird and it was touching and it was kind of, again, weird, was all these condolences I kept getting from people. Because like, that's the thing, everybody know me as the Prince guy. And I was like, well, yeah, I feel like a family member died. I'm still grieving over this guy. I can't listen. People are like, we're going to go to this tribute concert to Prince and celebrate the life. I'm like, I'm going to just celebrate life bullshit. I was like, I mean, I get when people want to celebrate life, but I have no problem mourning death. Yeah, so it's something his death I took very, very hard, and I'm still taking it very, very hard. Yeah. But yeah, it's there are times when I really think Prince is what got me through the 80s. Yeah.
Did you hear? But one of the things that I have been following, again, because of course I know the hits, but I don't have this deep connection that you had. But did you see all these stories that have been bubbling up have been so fascinating?
Yeah.
Did you see the one about Sexy Back?
And is it tell Timberlake that Sexy never left?
No.
Because that one is good.
Right, Love Sexy.
Love Sexy. What about it?
So there's this guy. He's producing the video, and he's like, so we do all the videos. I'll fly out to Minnesota all the time. We'll talk with Prince, and we'd have these conversations about what he wanted. And he said one of my favorite stories of Prince was, we were in conversation and we were going to do a video for Love Sexy that never actually happened. But he was describing the scene where he would be in bed with a woman and then there would be a giant neon sign that said Love Sexy at the foot of the bed. And he was like, we can film that at my house. And the producer guy was like, okay, no problem. We can make the sign. We'll bring it over to the house. We'll film it at your house. And he said, no, we can film it at my house. And the guy was like, oh, I get it. You have a giant Love Sexy neon sign in your room already. And so these stories that have been coming out about men have been very, very touching. But also your updates on Facebook have been it's watching somebody that obviously had a deep connection with this movie kind of move through. And I love what you had to say about you better mourn me. Like it doesn't have to be a celebration of life.
Yeah.
But a little just to leave on a high note.
Yeah.
Then Beyonce dropped Lemonade. How you feeling about that?
Oh my God, I'm in love with that album. This is how I think we process things now. We wait for somebody to drop a bomb, then we sit back and then we wait for the think pieces to come in. And somebody had wrote something for the Formation video, and she called it the Don't Overthink It piece. And I was like, God, I hope you just have a whole career called it writing the Don't Overthink It piece. And I think people, there are people who I think are making too big a deal out of it. I mean, poor Rachel Roy becoming the new most hated woman in America. It's like, you slept with my man. And then on the other hand, there are people like, oh, it's just cynical crass marketing and blah, blah, blah. It's just a great pop album. Yeah, you don't have to overanalyze it, but you can also make it move you if you want. I think it's one of those moments where pop really rubs very hard against art. Like Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation or Madonna Like a Prayer. These sort of it's very easy to get sort of cynical and rockist about it. Well, she had such and such producers. She had 15 different producers and blah, 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 and so on. I'm like, so did Stop in the Name of Love, and it's one of the most fantastic things that ever happened to 20th century music. It's like to say that music like that cannot be emotionally rewarding is saying that Motown can't be emotionally rewarding, or Stax Volt, and that's as much factory-produced pop as anything else. The thing that I find really interesting about Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar and these guys is I don't think I've ever seen artists as they get bigger get blacker.
That's interesting.
It's used to be different. It's as you get bigger, you get more mainstream, quote unquote. And I think the thing about Beyonce that I like, particularly the Formation and like Rihanna's Bitch Better Have My Money video, which I absolutely adore, is that it's blacker, but it's unacceptable blackness. It's ratchet blackness, and we still can't resist bootstrapping ourselves. Yeah, why can't it be more proper kind of blackness? Why is she singing about taking his ass to Red Lobster? Well, it was really good sex. What? Where must we go? Where must we go? Arby's? No.
Cheddar Bay biscuit.
I was arguing to somebody that's the most profound line in the whole song. Because I'm going to throw this sort of really unacceptable blackness, which is unacceptable to most black people, back at you. And I'm going to talk about whatever. I'm going to talk about sex. I'm going to talk about my man. I'm going to talk about love. I'm going to talk about betrayal. And yes, you still don't get to shoot me. And why can't, right? The idea that why can't she have all these multiple thoughts and these so on? And I think the thing about is we're in an era where pop artists are pushing themselves, and I think that's great.
Well, I think the same could be said for literature. You definitely did that with.
You saying I'm not Beyonce?
Yeah, is that gonna be a blurb on the next cover?
Yes.
Marlon James, the Beyonce of literature.
Doesn't put Beyonce with a pen, because that's horrible.
Let's give one little clap for Marlon James, Beyonce of literature. And then I don't want to hog all of this genius up here, so please don't be shy if you have a question. The only thing that I ask is that it is a question, not more of a comment.
That does shut down half of the room. Sure, how would I define or even differentiate the writing process between this book and the Book of Night Women? They were really different. In fact, the Book of Night Women was ruining this novel. Because I just figured, and it's funny because I'm one of those guys who advise against process. I actually don't think there's such a thing. This is not tangential. I just said a fight I had with a student because she came in. There's a 19-year-old talking about her process. I'm like, you don't have a process. She's like, what are you talking about? I have a process. Like, you do not have a process. And she kept on saying, you don't have a process. You have a habit, and cut it out now. It's like, what I find, and it's easy for me to say it from here, but I always forget it myself, is each book demands its own process. And one of the things that has always failed for me, and despite it being always failed, I keep trying, is to use a process from a previous book to write the next one, or a previous story to write the next one. It never fails, it never works, and I always try, and I always learn the hard way. You idiot, it's not gonna work that way. So Night Woman started out, and another thing I realized with my books is that every book starts with a false start. So every novel I have anywhere between 50 to 200 pages of stuff that did not appear in the book. I wrote this and go, oh yeah, I know what I want to do now, and it's not this. So Night Woman started out as this kind of 19th century Jane Austen, really proper standard English kind of novel. I still have the pages. I found them back a few days ago. They're terrible. It was set 30 years in the future from where it's set in 1834. It had nothing to do with Lilith. Lilith was just a character with a secret. And I just had this idea, what if I just spend a few pages writing slave dialect, slave patois, this woman's Lilith with a secret. And I started writing those pages, thinking it would be 4 or 5. It ended up being 50. Then 50 became 100. 100 became 200, and 200 became 500. And it's weird to describe it because I wrote the whole thing, but I fought it the entire way. Because this is not the novel I had in mind, damn it. And I'm fighting with this character over whose book it is, because it's my flipping book, not hers. She kind of won. But it led to me finding this voice who could talk about this character and figuring out how would this voice have authority to talk about this character. And people ask me, when did I know it was her daughter who tells the story? Spoiler alert. I didn't know till the end of the book. I actually didn't know until the end of the book who was telling the story. So when you take something like that, where a lot of Night Woman was me just speculating all the way to the end, and bring it to a novel that is so dependent on history and facts and politics, it was bound to collapse. And that's what happened. I kept looking for this one magic voice that's going to take me through 400 pages like it did with Night Woman. And it just didn't work. I didn't figure it out. Somebody figured it out for me. That what you're telling is a multi-voice novel, and so that's what it became. So it's the differences between one of the things I do realize is that, and A.S. Bayat said this, and I didn't believe it until it happened to me, that each book teaches you how to write the next one. And my first novel was the one that made me want to spend more time in Jamaica's past. Book of Night Woman, in a very real way, is still a classic idea of a novel. It has an arc, it rises, it falls, and so on. And this is the first novel where I had to let go of everything I thought a novel should be. And that was actually a lot harder than it seems. The only way I got through certain sections was to just say, I'll just leave it until my editor takes it out. So yeah, that is the way in which they're different. The one I'm writing now, I just came past a stage where I wrote tons of pages and go, yeah, I'm not going to use any of this. And I hate when I'm doing it, but once I get to that stage, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to write. I'm ready to write it now. But yeah, I think each book demands its own process.
Can you tell us anything about the book you're working on now?
God, there are vampires in it.
Shut the front door. Wait, really?
Yeah, there are vampires in it. There's a gang of vampires. That's all I'm telling you.
Jamaican vampires?
No, it's set in Africa in the Middle Ages. No, the Dark Ages, which weren't dark once they leave Europe. I mean, Europeans were shitting where they eat. That's their problem. The rest of us were figuring out it was already 365 days in a year. So yeah, it's. I mean, that's all. This well, there's much I would say about it. Yeah, I try not to talk too much about books I'm writing, but yeah, it's also demanding its own process. Yeah. And that is, I always forget. I was talking to some authors last night, and I was like, why do we always forget how hard it is to start a novel? We always forget. I was like, is this what happens every time a woman is in the delivery room? I was like, what the fuck?
Why did I do that?
How did I end up here again? Didn't it hurt the last time? I'm like, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, how did I forget how hard it is to start a flipping book? I apologize for all the swearing.
So well.
Huh?
Your last kid's doing so well.
There is somebody. You see, that's the thing. You remember them though as achieving little kids. And you're like, oh yeah, these little brats have to be born. So, new voices that I'm excited about. I'm reading a lot of new voices that I'm excited about. Nicole Dennis Ben is going to rock the world with Here Comes the Sun. The new Colson Whitehead novel is going to be the novel to beat, I think.
It's unbeatable.
It's, oh my God.
September.
Yeah.
It's gonna own the
Oh
fall.
my God. Yeah.
Underground.
The Underground Railroad.
By Colson Whitehead.
Oh my God.
September. It's gonna be amazing.
I always knew he had it in him. But new people, upcoming people, people who are already sort of establishing themselves. Naomi Jackson, I think, is writing some really, really incredible stuff. Helen Oyeyemi doesn't need my help, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I like how she is sort of absorbing all the myths, including those which people think she shouldn't be touching, and spinning it back. I love that. Helen Oyeyemi, El Nathan John from Nigeria. Who else is coming up? I think of Alvaro Enrique, who I think is really fantastic. Sudden Death. Kai Miller, who, funny enough, we both went to the same high school. He has a novel coming out called Augustown, which I think is great. Poetry, Aishan Hutchinson is a Jamaican poet, and he has the best book title of the year. It's called The House of Lords and Commons. It's like, how the hell how did I make you get that before me? Because I have this rule with a lot of Jamaican writers: if they have a really good title or story, I tell them, use it or I will take it from you. There's a scene in my book, one of the most ridiculous scenes, which actually happened. A woman in one of these ghetto areas said she was raped, and she was, but the police didn't care where they went. So they just went to a neighborhood, and their way of figuring out who the rapist was to just have all the virile men line up on the street and start to have sex with the road. People thought I made that up. No, that one's true. And they'll just go by looking at who is screwing the road the best. That is the rapist. We don't really have criminal investigation in Jamaica, not yet. So that will have to do. And who told me this? Colin China told me this. A novelist, Colin China. I said, if you do not use that, I'm going to take it from you. And he did not use it, so I took it from him. I was like, I tell my students, look, you can sit down waiting to create a story. I find them.
Yeah. Note to self: don't tell you any type.
No. It was like somebody had that quote about Mick Jagger said it about Bowie. So you cannot tell Bowie anything you're doing musically because he will snatch it.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you've got some amazing characters in A Brief History, but 7 of them are going to be killed. Is there a point when you're writing this that you're thinking, I don't want this person dead?
No, not really. I was trying really hard to kill them in 20 pages. And part of the reason why the novel went on that long is that they just wouldn't die. It's and I knew the book would end as soon as the 7th person died. I just didn't think it would take me. In manuscript form, it was around 1,000 pages. I didn't think it would take me that long. What happened? I think what did happen, and I mean it's nothing really new. I think it has to happen for a novelist. Is that you do end up kind of falling for your characters, even the really, really terrible, irredeemable ones. As a novelist, you kind of have to fall in love with them a little bit, or else you're never gonna move them beyond caricature. When people tell me, nobody in your book deserved death more than Josie Wales, but I missed him when he was gone. I'm like, well, my work here is done. It's because I think people should have complicated reactions to characters in literature. It shouldn't be. It's too easy to just automatically just love a character or hate a character. So I had to get to the point where I fell for all of them. One of the things about Josie Wales, which was very conflicting for me, is that he's the most brutal character in the book, but he has the most refreshing worldview. It's like, that is exactly how I see people, and his views on hypocrisy, I think, are fantastic. He's just killing people. It happens, but yeah.
Also, kind of more joyful than Nina. Like,
yeah, and Nina also. I mean, Nina reflects so much. Nina grew up in Havendale. I grew up in Portmore. We're both on the fringes of Kingston, but we're not quite uptown Kingston. And a lot of the ways in which she sees society is the way I see it. And one of the things about, for example, moving in these worlds but not being part of them is that you see the bullshit of each sort of social class.
I was gonna say, like, ironic and snarky.
That too, yeah. I'm not snarky.
No. Ironic. She's very ironic.
Oh, you mean her?
Yeah. I think we've got time for one last question.
How did I become a writer? That is a good question, actually. And usually, how do we answer this? I remember the first time when somebody asked me, what would I be doing if I wasn't a writer, and I couldn't answer the question. And that's when I knew I was a writer. Because I didn't even know, like, what would you be doing if you weren't writing? And I don't know. I don't have and I've done pretty much everything. And I did the idea of going back to all the things I used to do, even now I'm drawing a blank as to what would I be doing if I'm not a writer. How did I become a writer? I think I became a writer I think for a lot of writers, all writers are compulsive readers, and a lot of people read a lot of books. But there comes a point where you want to do for a reader what that book just did to you. And that happened to me really, really early. It happened to me with Little House in the Big Woods by Laura Ingalls Wilder. I remember reading that thinking, wow, this book doesn't have many pictures, but I'm still reading it. I was like 6. And I thought the idea of a book without pictures was a horrible idea, and it's still a bad idea. But the idea that I wanted to do that, like, wow, I read this book even though there are no pictures. I'm going to make people read a book with no pictures. Or read comics and wanted to read something where people feel that rush. That was when I knew I wanted to be a writer, because I wanted people to have that. I wanted to write the type of book that produced that kind of feeling. And but I didn't take writing seriously till around 1999. And this was even after I did it in college and so on. I mean, coming out to Jamaica, I still came from the you must be a lawyer or doctor generation. And my parents didn't put any pressure on us at all. They actually left us to be who we wanted to be. And I still felt that social pressure. So yeah, around 1999, that's when I actually started to seriously write. And those who didn't hear, he's asking which novelists or novelists inspire me in terms of form and structure and so on. Wow, that could be another 1-hour discussion. Orhan Pamuk, who I like very much, particularly his novel My Name is Red. I'm more inspired a lot of times by books than authors, that whole arc of an author. V.S. Naipaul's In a Free State. Toni Morrison, clearly. I mean, I'm pretty very vocal in how much I worship her. Salman Rushdie's novel Shame. Wilson Harris's the Guyana trilogy? That's not what it's called. Well, Palace of the Peacock. The writers, Faulkner, of course. Writers who depend a lot on voice, I'm inspired by. So like the Faulkners and the Toni Morrisons, but even John Updike. Writers who manage to be outside and inside at the same time. So a lot of the Russians like Dostoevsky and Nabokov. But I can tell you about 2 writers who, after reading their books, wrote a book. One was Jessica Hagedorn. After I read Dog Eaters, and Dog Eaters, at the time I thought, This is the greatest novel about Jamaica I've ever read, and it's set in the Philippines. And the one thing that Jamaica has in common with Philippines is that at every time there is an election and a beauty contest. And I was like, yeah, that's us. And that's the whole thing. It's always an election and a beauty contest. And the idea that the voices of the people could be the voice that also tells a story was a very big turning point for me, because I thought if I was going to write a novel, I should sound like Dickens. So that was one. Salman Rushdie's novel Shame was another book that I wrote a book after reading it. Because the whole idea that you didn't have to follow this kind of social realist Victorian novel, that you can actually allow for the ridiculous and allow for the magical and even mess with narrative. Like in Shame, he actually tells you the characters he will be killing off in the middle of the book. And then you flip to the middle of the book, and yes, the character is dead. Those are the things that sort of shape me and shape narrative. Whenever I'm writing a book, I have a library of books that I read, so I really end up reading what's out there. And that library of books can be anywhere between 10 to 100 books that I'm just constantly reading when I'm writing.
Well, I can't wait to read the book that you write after listening to Lemonade. That I feel like is motivating the next book. We have to let the students go, or else they're going to miss classes and get in trouble. But please join me in once again thanking Marlon James for joining us.
Thank you.